But do you guys remember the days when there was no technology? Okay, well not absolutely no technology, but the days before cable, the days before the World Wide Web, before stuff, you know what I'm talking about? You remember what? Alright, you remember those days. And I remember when me and my family were the only family on the block who had a computer. Okay? Now, my parents were like techno geeks, okay? They're like really into technology. Every gadget that came out, they had to have. Okay? And the computer was like the latest thing ever in 1987. And so we had to have one. And we had those old IBMs, you know, the ones with the blue screen. Okay? It used MS-DOS. That's Microsoft Disk Operating Systems. MS-DOS, okay? Alright? We had the trackball mouse. Okay, which made navigating your computer more like using Braille, okay? Alright, we had our CPU, but it wasn't vertical, it wasn't towered, it was horizontal. Okay, and it had 2 slots for floppy disks. Alright, and remember the really big floppy, like the actual floppy disk that like flopped around like big as your head, and then you had the small 3.5 floppy diskette. You remember that? And you know, whenever you touch that tape, it's gonna mess up the whole program. Alright, and then we had our printer. Don't forget, you remember those printers with the paper, it had like the holes on both sides. You had to lay them in, okay? Like Legos. Alright, and then you put it in there, it takes like 10 minutes to print one page, like oh yes, the letter A. Technology, great. Alright, I remember the days before the cell phone. Heck, I remember the days of the rotary phone. Remember those old rotary phones that had like the holes in it? And you stick your finger on one side and you go. Yes, I've had a lot of experience with those. Okay, but the cell phone changed everything. You didn't have to be at home to answer your phone calls. You could walk around. Okay, but it was really hard using those old cell phones. Those big ones was like the size of your head. And the antenna was so big it could be used as an ICBM against Russia. You remember? Because you know when those came out, we were still in the Cold War. Alright, I remember those days. Those were the days when the only people that I knew who had a cell phone was Heathcliff Huxtable, Zach Morris, and my mama. And they carried around that big old bag where you couldn't just fit it in your back pocket. My back pocket. Okay, you couldn't fit it in your back. You had to carry it on your bag. And the charger, you couldn't just charge it in the wall. You had to pull out the charger, which was its own special unit. And you had to slide on it and just sit there with a little gangster lean, you know? Yeah, those were some good days, some good days.